Yeah, that's what you should get in the habit of, like conversational stuff.
Right, like I'm pushing myself and I'm pushing myself and I'm pushing myself to like make this business work. And all it's doing is pushing me the opposite direction of how I want this business to be working. You know what I mean? So like what is the middle ground? Like how I don't know. Recently I came up with this like, you know what? Fuck it. If I want my business to give me the life that I want to have the life first for me to get the business.
Yeah. I think in general it's a pretty counterintuitive universe that we live in. Everything is just kind of like, if you work really hard, I was definitely raised on like you work hard and that's what you got to do. You got to work really hard. And as I get older, it's like the harder I work, the more tired I am. It's not like the more I get out of it, the more money I'm seeing, the more,
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that to an extent. Like, I think about what I'm doing at my particular job, and like, the more responsibilities I take on, the more I have been getting paid. But also, with this increase in responsibilities comes an increase in like depth of role, right? So, like, now I'm not just answering the phones or putting stuff on the calendar. Like, now I'm going deeper into the financials. Now I'm going deeper into a managerial role. Like, now I'm going deeper into a potentially a supervisory kind of capacity, right? So like that holds more weight. You know what I mean? So by holding more weight, you would naturally receive more value in exchange for it. You know what I mean? Not necessarily because you're doing more work. It's because the work that you are taking on takes more, like it adds more value to the company. I think it's more that depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you were going on there about, sorry, I just interrupted you because I was thinking about like how things have worked, because I've gotten like a 5-figure raise in the last year because of the roles and responsibilities that I am taking on. And you were talking about like when you were raised, like the harder you work, the more you're going to make.
Right. But it's not necessarily, right? So
Right.
like you can start doing all those extra roles and incentive, right? And be like, oh, well, the money will come. And I think that's how I've operated in the past. Like, oh, they'll see how hard I'm working. And I think I talked about this last time. Like, I worked really hard at a job and somebody else got the credit for it. So now I busted my ass and my pay is exactly the same and I'm just more tired, you know.
Yeah. Like it makes no sense.
It doesn't, but it does. I mean, at a certain point when you realize that's how the world is, you kind of have to account for it and you just have to protect yourself. I mean, that's the takeaway I've come away with the last couple of years, is you just have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Because
nobody's going to do it for you.
Right. And you think people are going to see what you're doing, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes the wrong people see what you're doing, right? Like the person you're trying to impress, whether it's your boss or whatever, doesn't see what you're doing, but the person who's in competition with you and does see what you're doing and finds a way to take credit for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got the wrong people seeing you.
Don't pay any attention to this.
It's not. It's like it's recording neither of us. Here's the space in between us.
We're at opposite sides of the camera. I should just go get my tripod out of the car with my ring light.
This is like the one spot that's not a background. It's like that's a background. This picture's a background. This crappy window with all the crap that I just threw up there. That's the background.
It's all right. Only the people who are watching the YouTube podcast are gonna know.
Okay.
I don't know. I've been really feeling into that lately because, I obviously went to the doctor today. I have a sinus infection. I have an ear infection. I have a fungus on my skin that is going to take 6 months for me to get rid of. And I have to have a hole drilled in my skull to get rid of a cyst. And like, I've been sitting here for the last, 4 or 5 years now. I'm like, I want to make this work. I want to make this work. I want to make my online business work. Like, I want it to work for me. And like, don't get me wrong. I've come very far in the last 5 years. I think I have. I've done a lot of stuff. I've been a lot of places. I've learned a lot of things from a lot of different people, whether it's because of programs that I've been in or like life lessons because of the way that they've treated me or the way that they've, done business or whatever the case may be. I've learned a lot, but like now I'm at this point where like I see how important it is for me if I'm going to have a business at all. Like I have to be in tip-top shape, but also the business is separate from me, right? Like the problem that I have been having is that I am the business. And I cannot right. actually be the business.
You have to work on your business, not
right.
in the business.
Right. And like I can't go forward into life or business, whatever the case may be, and it be dependent on me. Like everybody talks about, oh, my business is my baby. And like, we have a baby. Okay.
Right.
But she is very independent now. Like she's doing the thing where she's like creating space because she wants to see what she could get away with now.
Right.
And like, your business is never going to do that.
She's a lot smarter than she would have been if we had just tried to do everything ourselves. Like she's in daycare. She's with one of our parents a lot of the time.
Yeah.
She's very sociable. If we were like, in terms of like thinking of a business as a baby, like if we were like, no, one of us has to be with her all the time, I feel like she wouldn't be as personable and sociable as she is.
It even gets me thinking, like, I have to wonder, like, our child is such a personal being. Like, we love her.
Right.
But we are okay with other people helping out.
Right. Not everybody is.
But, like, if you were to think of that phrase, my business is my baby, and then people are still very in control of it, like, the two, it doesn't correlate for us. Right. At least for me, it doesn't, right? Like, I'm sitting here trying to be in complete control of everything that happens in my business. But for my kid, I'm like, please help me,
Right.
Like, it doesn't match.
Right.
Well, so, like, why am I, that's what I'm coming back to this week. Like, why am I trying to do all of this by myself?
Right.
Makes no sense.
It's not, you can do it.
It's not an efficient use of my time.
The results will vary. Some people, all right, I think about my grandfather, and he opened a business, and he was there every day from the day he opened it till the day he died. He was there every single day, and that's the food industry is different. And I even heard Mark Cuban say it one time on Shark Tank. He was like, I have no interest in being in the food industry because you have to be there every day. So that's a little different. So it's not the best example. I work for the diner now, and the old guy that owns it, that's been there since the beginning, obviously, he's there every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he comes in and he's, he's there. He doesn't cook anymore. He doesn't, he's not
No, but he has
working,
to make sure that it's going to flow the way that it needs to flow. But he's just there,
and he's talking to his regulars and, these older guys that come in every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are certain businesses that applies to, like you do have to, but at the same time, they both hired other people too.
Well, yeah.
So whether you have a hand in it,
right,
you still have waiters, waitresses, busboys, cooks,
chefs,
bartenders, right.
That's true.
Valet attendants.
Yeah, like you literally wouldn't be able to do all those
You couldn't,
jobs
yeah.
all at the same time.
It would be a very, maybe, I feel like that's a movie somewhere where there's like a guy that wears like the different hats and he changes. He's like meeting them at the front door and like, taking their coat, and then he runs in and he's the waiter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's
a thing.
A comedy routine somewhere, but yeah.
Probably. I don't know. I just think of why, like, what is that actually getting accomplished? You know, like, I have always said, and I think I said this when we first met, but I said this in terms of like rowing and crew and training. Efficiency is my policy. And like, I have not said that at all since going into building an online business. And here I am. I'm like, okay, I'm like sick as a dog. I have to get surgery. Like, I need to bathe myself in Selsun Blue for the next 6 months. You know, like, efficiency has to be my policy now because I have to take care of myself. And like, this even comes in on like a parenting level too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love taking care of Penelope, but like, this is just, it goes to speak to that point of like, if it's so easy for me to turn around and be like, hey mom, can you take Penelope for the weekend? Or like, hey daycare, can you take her while I'm at work? Or like, hey Kathy, can you watch her while she's sick today? Like, if it's so easy for me to do that, why is it so difficult for me to be like, hey Tommy, can you help me with my marketing? Or like, hey Tommy, can you help me with my content? Or like, hey Tommy, and not even hey Tommy, like, I don't know, what if it was one of our friends, Crystal? Hey Crystal, somebody, right? Like, what is it? Is it like and maybe what you guys are going to see right now is the workings of a unraveling of an internal story of like money. Like, why am I afraid to put money out to hire someone? Like, why is that? Because if you were to really think about it, right? Like, if I were to spend money, and we've talked about this before, you and I, about getting salespeople. If I were to spend money on getting one salesperson, and that salesperson brought in, let's say, $2,000 worth of sales per day, that pays for me, that pays for you, and that pays for them.
Right.
Where's my loss on investment?
Right, but you have to put it up, and that's the big thing, is that the upfront costs, and there's such a thin line between a pyramid scheme and a legitimate business nowadays that nobody wants to put the upfront costs because you're so worried that it's, you know, you're not gonna get it back, and sometimes you don't. You know. Yeah. It's amazing how many jobs I've taken. There was one job I had. I was working for an estate sale company, and I really thought that it was a scam. And I was like, I'm going to just wait it out. And it's almost like that, you know, kind of see what this scam is. Yeah. Like to learn the sleight of hand. It's a line in a song. But, yeah, it was like I just kind of went along with it just to see, like, where it was going. And it ended up being, like, one of the best jobs I had. Yeah. And, there's just that thin line between, like, you know, getting that money back and not, because I just had it recently. I put money out. I took a bookkeeping job, hired, you know, you came with me a couple days. I had somebody come with me to do the organizing and, like, get all the paperwork in order because it was in a big pile in a room. And, you know, just going through all those receipts, and it was a couple days. And I had a friend that was looking for work, and I said, yeah, come on, I got this thing going, and paid out. I was like, okay, the money's going to come in now. I'm going to, you know, double my money. And then guy never pays, and
check bounce twice.
Check bounces, and the platform doesn't have my back as much as I thought it did, and there's really no safeguards. Yeah. You know, and then I tried to call his TaskRabbit job. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. if I'm slandering them right now. But hey, TaskRabbit.
If you're listening.
One of your people owes me about $1,000.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the hard part about having one of those in-between kind of companies. You know, like the Messenger. It's like, hey, we have this thing for you.
But I always had such good experiences because it was tough because I had taken jobs where they didn't pay. So I was very happy with TaskRabbit because
so your experience was
they
like
paid.
you
they took care of getting the money and giving it to me.
You wound up getting, this happened in 2023 because you wound up getting jobs and you were getting them naturally, organically.
Yeah.
And you were getting them for like renovations. And then all of a sudden that one woman just didn't pay the rest of her invoice. And it was like $953 that we had to write off as a bad debt. And you were like, oh, well, if I just find somebody in between, like if I find somebody through TaskRabbit, I get the lead, but then TaskRabbit's going to pay me no matter what. But in this case, that wasn't necessarily what ended up happening.
And I think that was because I think he kind of gamed the system a little bit. Like he had a card set up, so they're now. I don't know if I'll ever get paid out from that, but I think that he had his card set up to pay, and it pulled from it. So now TaskRabbit thinks that he paid or he didn't.
But it bounced.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe it just didn't clear, and this is where the conversation of energetic karma comes in, because it's kind of like stuck. It's like in purgatory right now.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll make its way to you. Like there's going to be a day, I promise you, within the next year, there will be a day where $1,000 will just fall into your lap. Like the exact amount that you're actually owed. It'll just fall into your lap and be like, wow, I wasn't expecting this day. And it'll probably feel like the best day of your life. You know?
I can see that. It happens.
Yeah. Or like maybe it doesn't happen today. Maybe you're making, I don't know, who's to say that in 2 years we're making $500,000 and all of a sudden we get an extra $1,000 in one day.
Right. And it wouldn't be a big deal for a company that has that kind of cushion to back it up, where I take a loss.
Yeah, but like
whatever, there's more from it. Now I'm not saving as much, but now I'm that was it. I put everything.
Yeah, you put out extra to be able to get that 1,000.
Right. I worked 40 hours to get the money to pay to try to double my money, you know.
Right.
So now I'm out, not just from the job. Now I'm out. I worked shifts and a job, and I didn't even get paid for that now. Now that money's gone too.
Yeah. Kind of just makes me think though that eventually it'll come back.
Well, everything for a reason too. You know, maybe I wasn't supposed to go down that road. That's what I keep telling myself, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's so hard to tell.
It is. But if that job had worked out, maybe I'd go down a little further, get some more jobs. Now instead of $1,000, now I get a little more confident. Like, oh, now I can dish out more money. Now I dish out $10,000 and I don't get it back. Now I'm in a worse position.
Right.
So.
I was listening to this podcast today, and the guy on the podcast was talking about how when you go into investing in your business, you shouldn't be investing anywhere between 5 and 10% of the revenue you want to make. So if you want to make $100,000, you would invest anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 that year so that you can make $100,000, right? Now, he did not say that it had to be strictly for coaching. He said $5,000 to $10,000 for mentorship, coaching, or even consultants, like people who you're going to hire to be able to get work done, you know? And I'm at this point right now where I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and I'm like, in all honesty, I've paid how much for coaching? And I would rather take that however many, hundreds, thousands of dollars. If I know that going into $100,000, $200,000 a year that I have to invest $10,000, I would rather take the remaining $5,000 or whatever. I think it's actually more than that because I'm only investing $2,000 this year to get my NLP certification. I'd rather take that other $7,500 and fucking hire someone. You know, if I could hire someone, get this is what I keep saying, even in terms of working with you, right? Like, if I could get someone to help me, whether it's social media graphics or whatever, then it takes it off my plate so that I can start to think about the podcast or speaking engagements or messaging or marketing, something higher level than just, man, I have to put together another carousel today. How in fuck's name am I going to do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
This video does not have either of us.
Neither one of us, yeah. Some occasional hand gestures.
Well, this was another good podcast, I think.
It's a good one.
Do you have any other takeaways that you want to share?
Um. Well, I don't know. I think I hate to keep saying the same thing. I think I said this last time, but you gotta protect yourself.
Sometimes you gotta sound like a broken record, Tommy.
Yeah, you have to. You gotta just find a way to protect yourself, because it's the, what do you call it? The silent depression out there right now, and everybody's hungry. Everybody's gonna do whatever they have to do to survive and take care of their family, and they're gonna do whatever they have to do. I mean,
yeah, I think even though like that yes, that is somewhat of like a point, but it also brings up this whole like cover your ass kind of bit.
Yeah.
Like make sure that if you're going to go into something that you have the documents, like I'm covering my ass, like then that way if somebody were to be like, well, my card bounced twice.
Right. Well, here's the other way. Get paid before you do the job.
Yeah.
You
right.
know? Get the money in your hand. Not pending.
Or like if you, so like another thing, we were out in Sedona. You remember I went out for that retreat in Sedona in July 2021? And so we were out in Sedona, and the coach that hosted that retreat was like on the phone with one of her clients who wound up having cancer and stopped paying the coach, right? So she was like she was like up in arms over this whole like, you owe me this much money, you haven't paid me, da da da. You either set up a payment plan with a CRM, client relationship management software, where it's pulling automatically so that you don't have to even have the conversation.
Right.
Or you do like what we were just talking about the other day. Where's a collections agency so I could collect on this debt?
Right. Well, they're getting another phone call in the next couple of days. They never call me back, or I'm gonna find another one.
Yeah, but like it's
keep them on retainer.
Like it's fair though if you think about it. Like I get that this is part of doing business, but I actually like really don't like making the phone calls to be like, hey, your invoice is past 30 days. Pay up or you're not getting another order. Right,
and that's something you can't be the face of the company and be a hard ass too. Like you can't be like the social, like, hey, whatever you need, like
it has to be separate.
Then you're a two-face.
Right.
You know what I mean? People are going to say like, oh, he was real nice when he was selling to me, and now he's okay, but nobody wants to hear like you also weren't paying. You're not paying.
Yeah, but like, look at the
like
way
you're taking another side at him. You're making me be a certain way because you're not just doing what you're supposed to be doing.
But like, look at the way that like a grocery store, like a Target, has it set up, where like you take your item to the cash register and you have to scan it,
right? And
you like. It's like okay, you're responsible for making sure that you can pay this now. Or, even going back to the whole automatic thing. Just set up a software where they have to plug in their card, and if they're on a recurring payment plan, then it pulls automatically once a month for however many months are on the plan. Not that hard.
Yeah.
But this goes back to the whole, if you know that you have to invest $5,000 or $10,000 for your business to be able to generate $100,000, $150,000, right? Are you going to pay out for the software? Right. That's an investment.
Right.
And like people don't necessarily look at it that way because they're like, oh well, I need a coach. A coach is an investment because that's how they market it online.
You have to spend money to make money, but you have to spend the right money.
You have to spend in the right places.
Right.
Like QuickBooks, right? I think QuickBooks is a very valid expense because it's bookkeeping software, it's accounting software.
Yeah. That's like a no-brainer. Some certain things are no-brainers.
But if you were to go to any of these sales coaches, they wouldn't tell you to get QuickBooks. Not one of them. They'd be like, oh, you just have to go and make sales. Here's how you make a sale. Or just post content. Here's what you got to do in your content. Okay, what happens when I get the sale? Or even, There's plenty of people who ask the question before they even get any sales. They're putting their program together like, well, what about sales tax? Do I have to account for that in the price of my program? Because if I'm going to sell a program and it includes sales tax, am I losing out on profits if I price it at this point? Like, yeah, you if you market it at $8.97, right? And your state New Jersey has 7% sales tax, right? Let's just use 10 for the ease of numbers. So if you're marketing it at $8.97 and it's a 10% sales tax, that's $89 that comes out immediately off the top of the sale. That's almost $100. You
Right.
go from $8.97 basically down to $8.19, $8.17, whatever the hell it is. Great. $8.17 on sales tax, right? Okay. Now you have to think about setting aside federal tax, income tax, 30%. Boom. Another $80, $160, $240. You just took that $817. Now you're down to $6. So your profits are going to be skewed, especially if, let's say you had to buy a software, right? Now you got to pay the expense out of that $6 because it's still revenue, you know? Like, and when you're marketing the program, you're marketing at $8.97. And that's another really big question that comes into play. Like, well, is the tax off the marketed price? Yeah, it is. So if you want to include sales tax and add into the $8.97, now when you go to market, somebody's be like, well, you marketed it at $8.97, but it's actually $930. What the hell?
Right.
And they're going to lose interest in their peace out.
Right.
Because they think that they're paying more money. When really they're just covering the tax.
Right.
So, like, nobody talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And sales tax is a thing.
Oh, yeah. Taxes in general are just, they'll eat you.
But, like, that's why it's
For
important to have
everything. You're
accounting
covering
software.
your own, you know. Right.
I
You-
like-
you have to know what those numbers are.
Right.
Before you...
And I feel like everybody should have some version of accounting software, whether it's QuickBooks, Wave, whatever the hell the other one is. Like, it doesn't matter. Get yourself a software that can do the numbers so that you don't have to necessarily think about it. It sets itself up kind of almost automatically. Like, you're still going to have to categorize things, you know, but like with QuickBooks, if you connect it to your bank account, it collects all the transactions, and then all you have to do from there is categorize, this is cost of goods, this is services, this is sales, this is whatever. Kind of makes it easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Anything you can do to make your life easier is gonna, because I fell into that trap of like, oh, I could do, you know, I could do the heavy lifting, and I can do the, you know, my own back end stuff, and I can do this and I can do that, and anybody can do any one of those things. But once you start trying to do everything, you need as much backup as you can get, whether it's a person or a software or
Right.
you know,
Right.
even an app, you know.
Yeah. Well, I just keep going back to how you were talking about building the business. You're like, you said you were like, I want QuickBooks. And I was like, Tommy. Like, I was like, whoa. And you were like, no, get QuickBooks, because if we're going to have a business, we got to do it right.
QuickBooks to me has always been like the quintessential. And I don't know if they market themselves that way, and they're just brainwashed to believe that.
They kind of do. They kind of do.
But they are, and they make it easy. They make it simple. They make you want to come back the next year. You know, they do it for free. They help you file your tax. Some years they do it for free. Some years they do it, you know.
Well, it's Intuit.
TurboTax, whatever.
Intuit as like the overarching mother company, because Intuit owns Credit Karma, TurboTax, and QuickBooks.
Right.
But like, there's 2 accounting softwares in the United States, and the fact that nobody can answer what the second one is just goes to show how well
idea.
QuickBooks marketing is.
I have no idea what the other one is.
Yeah. Exactly.
Couldn't tell you.
Nobody does. Because QuickBooks is by far the leader, at least in the States. I'm sure that in other areas of the world they use the other one and they'll be able to tell you. Or they'll be able to tell us in the DMs or in our comments, but like there's two big ones in the United States. And one of them is QuickBooks. You know? But it is
listen in next time to find out what the other one is. Yeah.
But it is essential. Like, I think of how much I've learned in accounting over the past year. And if you don't have those statements put together, cash flow statements, statement of retained earnings, profit and loss, income statement, you know, like, what are you actually doing? Like, what are you reviewing? You could talk about content and social media all fucking day.
Right.
That's not a business at the end of the day. Businesses are reviewing numbers. Businesses understand the cash flow. Businesses are they're tracking their transactions. They're legal with the government. They're marketing. They're doing PR. They're doing social media. They're doing all of these things, and sometimes that requires a team, not just I'm gonna make a piece of content today.
Right.
Post it on the internet.
You kind of need the perspective. You need the hands. It's always, you're always going to make more money together with somebody. Everybody's going to make more money together. And even if you're only seeing 10%, you know, a lot of people fall into that trap. I know a lot of people that fall into the trap of, well, what am I going to give you 80% for if I could walk away with 100? You're going to get 100% of nothing. You know, 100% of nothing is nothing. And, you know, 20% of, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll take 10% of all these transactions and never lift another box or move another couch as long as I live.
That's how, like, agencies work.
Yeah.
Like an employment agency, when you think of how they price out, you know, if you're going to put a temp in a position, the hourly rate, if the hourly rate is, let's say, $25 an hour, they're taking $5. That's 10%.
Right.
The company's taking 10% off the top of each temp.
Right.
But it's a volume model.
Right.
They place
and it's
how
not
many
like
temps.
it's not like I'm not doing anything. I'm promoting. I'm following leads. I'm getting the business. I'm getting it to. This is how I always thought of my business. I'm an employment agency insofar as I have, you know, businesses are looking for people to do the jobs. And I can go out and try to do all those jobs myself, and I can be very, very tired after a couple of weeks and potentially hurt myself. Or I can make sure that those jobs always have the people on it. And I can also have my own guys that are looking for work and connect them with those jobs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know.
Instead of trying to come up with the jobs myself and work them and you know,
it's exhausting.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. It's physical, especially physical labor. It's once you start adding moving stuff up and down stairs, it's entirely too much.
Yeah. And
the most success I had was sitting behind a desk and saying, "Hey, you go here today, you go there," and you know, getting the leads and getting, you know, selling. Yes. And I even outsourced that at a certain point. So then I really wasn't doing much, but I was the person that came up with the upfront cost, and I hired the people up front to do the selling and to...
like building out the structure.
Yeah.
Like, okay. So it's almost like layers of an onion is what it sounds like to me, right? Like, okay, I know that the labor is really highly involved on the outside, but then what's the next layer on the inside? And that might be the sales, right? And then the next layer on the inside is like, okay, the pricing structure. Okay, the next level, you know, it's just like going to the inside of the onion in this particular case. Any other takeaways that you want to hone in on?
I can't think of any, but don't
go unprotected.
No, that wasn't going to be it. Don't try to do it all yourself. Yeah. Because you're just going to drive yourself crazy, or you're going to hurt yourself, or you're going to do something, you know,
sick, or
you're going to end up losing the business because you tried to keep 100% of the profits. And I've said it 1,000 times since I started my first business many years ago, you know, you get 100% of nothing, or you get 80% of 10 different things.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that. All right. I think we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Send us your takeaways. Tag us in your stories. And if you get, let's just say 20, 30 seconds, toss a review out there for the His and Hers podcast episodes. We really enjoy doing these episodes, and we want to hear your feedback. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.